I'm Frank Franco, the Travel Guy, and I'm here to explore Malta.
Come on now, there's a world out there and it's waiting to be explored. If you're craving an adventure, the Travel Guy's got what you're looking for. Sights, sounds, streets of town, just take a look around. There's a dream of paradise, there's advice we must bestow. Don't just pack your bags and hit the road, you gotta know before you go.
Malta is located in the central Mediterranean Sea, south of Italy and northeast of Tunisia.
Valletta is Malta's capital city. It's also known as the Fortress City. That's because it has these huge impenetrable walls built around it. Now, it was originally built for the Knights of St. John's back in 1565, mostly for their protection, but also for their entertainment and relaxation. Now, what's really neat is that inside these walls, the city has still maintained its historic charm. My first stop was the St. Paul's Shipwreck Church. The masterpieces on the ceiling and walls were breathtaking. There are a few religious artifacts housed in the church that are thought to be authentic and should definitely be seen. I went for a short walk through the streets to get to my next destination, the St. John's Co-Cathedral, where I was meeting Trudy. Trudy asked me to meet her inside the St. John's Co-Cathedral. She also said, don't be fooled by the simple-looking facade, but to step inside and the splendor of the church will reveal itself to me. Wow, this place glitters. Almost everything is accentuated with gold. This is truly an amazing place.
Yes, in fact, this is the gem of Valletta. One cannot miss it when visiting the capital city.
I see these beautiful marble paintings here, but I understand that these are tombs that we're actually walking on?
Yes, there are 400 knights buried in here, and the marble, they got it from Carrara in Italy, so specifically for this church. And what's amazing as well of the cathedral is the ceiling. You have the life of John the Baptist, the patron saint of order, painted here. And the artist was Italian. He was from Calabria, Mattia Preti. I call this his art gallery. He spent 5 years working on the ceiling, and he did it for free. Wow. That's why he was given a knighthood. There are 8 chapels. It has got the Latin cross plan. So each nationality that formed the Order of St. John was responsible for the decoration of their chapel. So obviously you can imagine the competition these knights, these aristocrats had from all over Europe to decorate their chapel. That's why certain artists visited Malta.
A visit to Valletta wouldn't be complete without visiting the Upper Baracca Gardens. Now, what's interesting about this place is not only do you get beautiful flowers and scenery, but if you walk straight through these arched walls, you'll be amazed at the scenery you're gonna see. By the way, it's the most photographed spot in Malta. Wow, I can see why this is the most photographed place in Malta. Over here is the Grand Harbor, and there are the 3 cities, which I'm gonna check out later. In just a few minutes, I'm going to experience the reenactment of a military parade. These parades took place centuries ago, and what happened was that the Grand Bailiff would come to Fort St. Elmo's, inspect the troops to make sure that they were ready for battle at any given time.
The megalithic temple builders arrived in Malta about 4000 BC, and they built these beautiful structures that you see beside me. The Gigantea temples are of particular importance because they're the world's oldest freestanding structures. Now, they date back to about 3600 BC. That's older than the pyramids of Egypt. The complex is comprised of 2 temples that were used for over 1,000 years. Rituals of life and fertility were practiced within the chambers until around 2500 BC, when the Maltese temple culture mysteriously disappeared. The name Gigantea has a really interesting story behind it. The local farmers thousands of years ago couldn't actually explain how the temples were made, so they made up a folklore. Basically, they said that there was a female giant who used to carry a rock on top of her head and her son in her arm, and one by one she placed the temple stones until the whole thing was created. Similar to the temples, the citadel has also had a significant impact on the history of Gozo. In 1551, the Turks attacked the citadel and forced all captured into slavery. Now, as a result, the knights came and rebuilt the fortification to protect all local inhabitants. The citadel, or Gran Castello, is the oldest inhabited area on Gozo and the former capital of the island. It has impressive battlements, a beautiful cathedral, and most interestingly, the rubble of broken walls from hundreds of years ago. The quaint remains of the old houses are in great contrast to what the area was actually used for. Whenever corsairs were sighted off the coast of Gozo, all the locals would scurry within the citadel's walls for protection, and many spent every single night of their lives within the fortified walls. The citadel also houses an armory and an old prison. 4 days on bread and water. Ooh. One of the neatest places I've found in the citadel is the old prison, because it's got the largest collection of historical graffiti on Malta. You'll find everything from ships to hands to Maltese crosses to knights. And you can only imagine the history behind all of the graffiti.
Hands often in prison would represent the identity. Often they are illiterate, so they put the hand to show their presence. Even Paleolithic men did so many thousands of years before.
Really?
Quite big evidence of religious symbolism. Then you see ships, you see knights crosses. Many knights of Malta were imprisoned here. The stone is very humid, so touching you will only help deterioration.
It'll ruin the stone.
So as I continue my tour around Malta, I came across this quaint little fishing village called Marsa Schlock, which means Harbor of the Southeast. Now, if you get here early enough, you'll get to see the fishermen bring in their catch, work on their boats, fix their nets. You get this gorgeous view of the harbor with all these colorful boats behind you. This is a traditional Maltese fishing boat called a lutsu. And as you can see, they're multicolored and spattered all over the harbor. But the colors actually mean something. For example, the blue represents the sea. The yellow represents the sun. And as you can see, those eyes at the front, those are the eyes of Osiris, an Egyptian god that are supposed to guide the boat and protect it. Along the harbor, vendors await you, selling everything from the eyes of Osiris to other tourist souvenirs. If you're looking for authentic Maltese crafts, then the Ta'ali Crafts Village is where you have to visit. Here you'll find artisans making lace. You'll see them doing pottery, glass blowing, furniture, and even silver and gold filigree.
Filigree is made of silver wire, silver thread, which is made of 2 wires, 0.2 of a millimeter. It's twisted together to come like this. Made of pure silver, very, very soft, so we can work it up as you see. When a finished product, it comes very, very strong like that. Listen, we always make a frame, which is still silver. We make a frame and we fit inside the frame, whatever we do.
Filigree was interesting, but I wanted to try glass blowing with some of Malta's finest. After watching the masters at work, I really thought I could do it. I mean, it didn't look too difficult. Finally, my big chance. It wasn't as easy as it looked. And oh yeah, my piece, well, let's just say it got recycled. When night falls and the lights are turned on around the Grand Harbor, these buildings and fortresses take on a whole new character. And if you're fortunate enough to be here during Fireworks Festival, hey, you're gonna have an explosively great time. Every year in May, Malta puts on a huge fireworks festival. The Grand Harbor is the place to be. During the festival, you'll enjoy food, music, dance, and watch the night sky light up.
Gozo has many natural wonders worth exploring. I've hiked down here to the Azur window, which is a 20-meter high sea arch that jets right out of the Mediterranean. And as you can see behind me, it's the perfect picture within a frame. The Azur window was created by rough seas breaking on the rocks over thousands of years. On top of the two giant columns of rock rests a huge ledge that measures about 100 meters in length. Formed of limestone, it's estimated the arch will disappear within a few years due to its fragile state. Large pieces of rock have been falling from the arch in recent years, so if you plan on taking a closer look, use extreme caution. If you want a really cool treat, you can pop over to the other side of the Azur window and check out the Inland Sea. It's a really neat tunnel that connects the Mediterranean to a beautiful little swimming cove. The Inland Sea and Dueira Bay were created millions of years ago when two limestone caves collapsed, forming an almost Gothic-looking arch. The tunnel through the cave is 100 meters in length and provides impressive views of the natural landscape. Be sure to look for the purple and orange-colored coral in any one of the caves along the ride, and enjoy the sheer magnitude of the surrounding cliffs. Along the Dueira coast, you'll find fungus rock. The Knights actually used to use the fungus on top of the rock to cure rare illnesses. Now, it was so important that they actually built a tower to watch over the rock. Now, if you're thinking this sounds a little bizarre, you're not alone. It wasn't until I spoke to the site curator that it all became clear to me. The Knights were not simply curing dysentery and headaches with the fungus, but rather they believed it had aphrodisiacal powers as well. This is particularly interesting, considering they'd all taken a vow of chastity. Located just a few minutes from Fungus Rock, the salt pans are still in use today. Once the water evaporates in the pans, the salt is harvested, cleaned, packed, and sold, a tradition that spans many centuries. After a fantastic time on the naturally rich island of Gozo, I took the 30-minute ferry ride to Malta.
The three cities provide a fabulous insight into Malta's past. This place, for example, was originally called Birgu. It was the place that the Knights first settled back in 1530. Now, because it withstood the Great Siege of 1565, the Knights renamed it Città Victoriosa, or Victorious City. I went off to explore the narrow, winding streets and made my way to the Grand Harbor for a very exciting boat tour.
I've been in this boat for about 65 years. This is called Maltese original Dysa. The Maltese Dysa. This is the original boat. No boat used to be in the harbor except these. Yeah.
Seeing Valletta, the three cities, and the surrounding landscape from the harbor made me realize how strongly fortified these cities were. And Freddie also gave me his personal historical account of the past 65 years. Man, you can't ask for better. You know, the harbor tour is well worth it, especially when you get your own private little boat and go around for about 20 minutes or so. You get a sight that's unbelievable. As much as I wanted to hear more of Freddie's stories, he wanted me off the boat. He said he had more work to do. So I continued exploring the three cities. I walked in and out of narrow streets and climbed many stairs, but never once thinking I was tired. There was a lot more for me to see and many more pictures I needed to take. Sanglia is located on a peninsula that juts out into the Grand Harbor. Now, what's interesting about this place is back in the 1500s, Grandmaster Lavalette nicknamed this Città Invicta, which means invincible city, and that's because it's protected by two forts. Now, the locals refer to this place as Isla, and hey, if you want a great view of the city of Valletta, just look over there. Guards! Hey, guards! Guards! Come on, feed me! This is the Inquisitor's Palace. It was originally built in the 1530s as the civil law court for the Knights of St. John. This is where all the bad knights and everybody else that broke the law were imprisoned. This place became the Inquisitor's Palace in 1571. The church sent representatives to Malta to report on the knights and to ensure that they did not stray from their religious beliefs.
I'm very fortunate today because not only do I get to learn a bit more about the nobility of Malta, but I also get my very own personal guided tour of the Casa Rocca Piccola with the proprietor himself, the Marquis de Piro. Now, the casa is very interesting because it's got over 400 years of historical evidence of the nobility of Malta.
This house, it's a bit of us. It shows aspiration among the locals. Some people have said it's elitist and snobbish. Yes, it is, very. But I mean, if there was no hope for anybody in Malta to gain anything under the Knights, there wouldn't have been a place like this. I mean, this is a house which proves that it was open to a lot of people to improve themselves, and this has been the history of Malta.
The first noble title given to the Marquis family was in 1716, and more impressively, it's still possible to view the over 600 letters that were written by the Marquis' relative to the Grand Master. Another important family figure was the Marquis' grandmother.
She was really knowledgeable, and she was a great collector, and she left us a lot of lovely things with strict instructions that they must not be divided. We have one item here which is unique. In the next room, we have the only set of doctor's instruments which come from the Hospitaller Order in silver from the 18th century.
While the numerous family heirlooms were interesting, I think the most fascinating part of the tour lay under the house.
We have the earliest air raid shelter in Malta, 1935, before the war. Grandfather thought there was going to be a war, and everybody thought he was quite mad to build an air raid shelter. He cut a zigzag in the rocks, and when the war came, he was all ready. He gave his great cistern. There was a great cistern under this house, which eventually became a shelter for the general public, holding 150 people in it.
One of the foremost places to visit on Malta is the city of Medina. It's the former capital city on the island, and it's a World Heritage Site protected by UNESCO. It's also nicknamed the Silent City. This medieval town is situated in the center of the island and was originally fortified by the Phoenicians around 700 BC. Medina houses many palaces, most of which serve as private homes. It's a very calm and peaceful place because no cars other than those of a limited number of residents are allowed inside the thick defensive walls. The streets of Medina are narrow and winding, and the architecture is a fantastic mix of Norman and Baroque. One of the local guides said it's like walking through an open-air museum, and if the walls could talk, they would tell you stories of a distant past. And an interesting past Medina has had after being occupied by various armies, including the Romans. It is also said that in 60 AD, the Apostle St. Paul lived here after being shipwrecked.
Along the southwest coast is the Blue Grotto. Now, it's a natural arch that's been carved out by the sea over thousands of years. It also gets the same because of the blue water that surrounds it. Now, locals tell me that long time ago it was said to believe that mermaids actually lived there. Okay, mermaids may be a stretch, but it's still worth checking out the Blue Grotto. Boats operate when the waters are relatively calm. Inside, you'll see the magnificent blue color of the water that gives the grotto its name. Wow, aren't the Dingley Cliffs amazing? They raise about 300 meters in the air. If you visit this area, you're gonna find cool walking trails that you can get different views of the cliffs. There's also picnic areas. And speaking of picnic areas, I think I'm gonna have my own personal picnic right now with my two pastizi. I went for a walk exploring the area. Remember, be careful here and definitely watch your step. Finally, I found the right spot to sit and have my snack. Boy, what a view. You can see for miles. Not too far from the Dingley Cliffs is the Busket Gardens. Now, this place was originally developed for the Knights as a hunting ground, but today there's beautiful pathways around this area that will show you flowers, citrus groves, olive groves, and basically beautiful surroundings. The Busket Gardens are Malta's only large area of woodland. To truly appreciate this area, you need to do a lot of walking. Hey, Lauren!
Hey, how's it going, Frank?
Good, what brings you here?
Oh, I'm just enjoying Malta's great nightlife.
Well, I've been around about half the island, and I've seen cities and villages where time has stood still. Learned a lot about the Knights, been into cathedrals, and hey, even in caves.
So you've been really busy.
Yeah.
You know, Malta and Gozo really bring you back to a different era. The rich architecture, the great seafood, and the beautiful blue Mediterranean are all added bonuses.
Malta's a great place, and you know what, Lauren? It really pays to know before you go. Can I join you?
Sure, have a seat.
Perfect. Malta's rich in history and architecture, but if you're a first-time visitor, getting to some of these places may be a daunting task. My advice is to hire a local tour guide. Not only will they save you time, but they'll probably tell you more than those guidebooks will ever tell you. If you visit the various indoor religious sites, be very respectful, which means take off your hat, cover your shoulders, and no shorts. If you're looking to take a taxi in Malta, make sure that they're city licensed, or better yet, ask for the price before you get there, or else you'll be in for a very unpleasant surprise. The Maltese lira is the local currency, but soon everything will be converted to the euro. So check before you get here which currency is being used.